Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is.
Hello.
Oh, how was your weekend?
It was all right. I saw Nope with a bunch of other people across the United States. And did you end up eventually seeing it? I know we kind of talked about it over the weekend when we did the Patreon episode. But
I did not.
did you ever get your ass to theater? So I liked some stuff, and some stuff I thought was kind of dumb. But I guess hit me up on social media if you want to go in depth about it. I'm not going to do that here. So did that. Also did something that I swore that I would never do. But as we learned last week with the Pantera stuff, which thank you, by the way. We did have audience members reach out to me to form kind of a support group in my Twitter DMs. So I want to thank the listeners that did that. One of them was somebody that was on the Clubhouse thing with you on Thursday. And it was nice. It was nice. They gave me some behind the scenes. They had a run in with Phil from Pantera, shed some light on the whole situation. I want to say that I appreciate that. I appreciate them for reaching out. Number one. Number two, it looks like I will not be going to see Pantera next year when they go on tour, or if they do, I won't be talking about it on social media at all. I'll
Jesus.
have to don another persona just
Oh
for
my God.
you know what I mean? Like I don't know, like Huckabee Wainwright. That'll be my fucking hillbilly name or
What the
something.
fuck?
I don't know. I'll just have to
That could
come
be
up with.
Wainwright. All right. That's what it is.
And yeah, but anyway, I did something I swore I'd never do. I got my conceal and carry license. So
Why did you swear you would never do that?
because I think it's a terrible idea. Like I'm not going to use it. Like I'm not going to go to fucking Applebee's with a gun under my shirt. Like that's fucking weird. And there's definitely the only reason I bring it up is because it was very interesting. Number one, for the people watching, the kind of people that you meet in a conceal and carry class, and the kind of people that teach a conceal and carry class. There's definitely this rhetoric of paranoia, which I think is kind of interesting. I know that we kind of, this show goes all over the place. We don't focus mainly on conspiracies, but when you talk about people that are really into conspiracies and that kind of anti-government, anti-establishment mindset, the people that think that there's some kind of shift coming that's been premeditated or orchestrated, or that all this stuff, be it they're coming to take our guns away, or society's on the verge of collapse for socioeconomic reasons or whatever. Those are the kind of people that you meet at a conceal and carry class. And it was interesting just kind of to people watching expand my bubble and be around them and listen to them. And I did it because it was on sale. It was, I
Sure.
when I got my first handgun a couple of years ago, I took the intro class at the place where I go to shoot, and that counts as 4 of my 16 hours for my conceal and carry. So it was a matter of just going back and taking the other 3 classes, and it was really just 2 classes and a range qualifier, which I fucking smoked. But yeah, it was interesting. That's kind of how I spent the past week. I was in gun school 12 hours and dealing with people that think that when George Soros takes over the American military, they're going to stop him with a fucking 9mm and a shotgun. I guess the greatest coalition, like the greatest army mankind has ever known. But you have a couple handguns, and you're gonna stop them. So good for you, bro. So yeah, that was a lot of this week, and then what else did I do? Not much. Started watching The Bear, which is about Chicago beef stand. And I'm as soon as I'm done with this, I swear to Christ, I'm going to start on Hellier season 2. So I know we've been giving me shit for that for a while. That's all I got, man. Nothing crazy.
That's all you want?
You know what? The one thing I want to talk about, because I want your advice on this, because you know me intimately enough to be able to comment on this. So as I mentioned last week, we're gearing up for this year's 48-hour film project. It is the weekend of September 23rd through the 25th. Got tons of people. We're doing really good. I mean, I want to throw the invite out there just because you never know who's going to show up or who's going to be interested. But if you want to see what it's like to make a movie in 48 hours, hit me up. If you're in Chicago or you're going to be in Chicago that weekend, or you want to come to Chicago that weekend, hit me up on social media. We'll make it happen. We'll find something for you to do. but we're doing really good. We got a huge cast. We got an editor, we got a cinematographer, everything's all good. Um, we have locations. We're going to shoot at a metaphysical store, which is like a witch store. So that'll be
Hmm.
neat. And I was talking with one of the people that actually helped me get the witch store location, and she also helped me secure one of the bars that we have the ability to film at. Because the thing with the 48-hour film is you never know what you're going to make until Friday night. So in advance, you try to line up all these locations and all these actors, and then when Friday comes, you say, okay, we're going to use these 2 locations and these 7 actors, right? But going into it, you need to have the biggest like reserve possible. So I was talking to this person about, did you secure the locations? Did you talk to the owners? Do I need to talk to the owners? What needs to happen? And I've been going back and forth with this person for like 2 weeks. And finally, she fucking snapped on me on Saturday and was like, "You're really fucking high strung." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, for a creative person, you're really high strung and neurotic. You need to chill the fuck out." And I don't know. Do you think I am? We work together pretty
Uh,
regularly.
yes, I do. But um, but it's not a you're not an asshole about it. At least you haven't been to me, and maybe it's because it's me. I don't know. Um, or at least
Yes,
I've
you
never.
you get special treatment. We'll just say that. Yeah, you always get special
Well,
treatment.
I don't know. Maybe I don't, and maybe you're just not an asshole about it. I'm just saying, in my experience, like you've never been like a dickhead about it. It's not a bad thing because you get shit done. I was just talking with somebody over the weekend about like, okay, so I've got sad news. The sad news is that I'm probably not going to go to Cryptid Bash, and it breaks my heart. It really does. But it's my own fucking fault because I didn't plan for it, and now it's fucking 2 weeks away, and it's my fault. I can't be mad at nobody but myself. And it's because I don't plan ahead of time, and you know that. So
Yeah.
you know, I feel like you do take it a little over the deep end, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it is intimidating to people like myself that don't do that. It's not intimidating. It can be stressful for people that don't plan, because we don't think that way. We're just like whatever, winging it. Um, I think that in your mind, you should set a realistic deadline, not your deadline, but a realistic deadline for when you need to know if that location is secure or not. The absolute last minute when you can know. And then you need to just settle with the fact that that's the deadline.
Oh yeah. Well, we're talking like this weekend. We're 2 months out from it, so there's plenty of time. But
Right.
at the same time, I asked someone to talk to somebody. I asked person A to talk to person B, and it had been 2 weeks and they hadn't done that. Now, in the age of social media, how long does it take to shoot somebody a message? Like you could do it right now while I'm finishing the sentence. You know what I mean? So don't tell me that over the course of 2 weeks. I understand what you're saying though. No, because I've gotten this shit from a lot of people before, and it's something that the reason I wanted to kind of do it publicly to check in with you about was because number one, I want to fucking check in with you, but number two, I think it's something that you get in a lot of creative relationships. It's something I've had in the past is that like
Yeah.
you need the John Lennon, but you need the Paul McCartney. Like you need
Right.
kind of both types because somebody's got to make sure that the fucking buses run on time, but you don't want someone that's so type A that they suck all the creative juice out of a situation. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's finding that perfect balance. It's never a perfect balance. It's an imperfect balance, but keeping that thing somewhat level and even is like I think the trick to making stuff work. You know?
I mean, on behalf of that person, you're right. It doesn't take long to just send a message to somebody, but I will say, um, you don't know what their standing is with the venue people. You know what I mean? Like maybe they were good friends and it's somebody they don't talk to for a while. Maybe they kind of need to like fluff them a little bit so they don't seem like they're just trying to use their location to film on.
Yeah. No,
You know,
I understand that.
you don't know. Who knows? What they got going on. I have no idea. I'm supposed to go on. I was asked to go back on the Bloody Bits horror show in September. And I told them that I would get back to them as to what weekend I can record, and I don't know yet. And it's because I have to sit down and do my September. I can't just like be like, oh, I could do it this day because I don't know. I have to plan my entire September because September's a crazy busy month.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't know what some of these things might entail for other people. But yes, Pat, you know that you're like that. So I mean, come on, you're like that.
I've never had anyone I haven't had anyone get forceful with me about it probably in a couple years though. Let
Well,
me put it like that to be like, listen,
maybe that
motherfucker, you need to
probably, and that's
chill the.
probably because you're not a dickhead. I mean, if you were a dickhead about it, then everybody would be like, "Oh, fuck you," But it's probably because you're not a dickhead about it that they're like, "I'm gonna have to hurt this dude's feelings," and I don't think that they do it to be mean or anything like that. I just think that, it's like the screaming woman in horror movies, and then she gets slapped in the fucking face and she comes out of her hysterics. It's like that
Oh,
sometimes.
okay.
It is. It is like that. So the person just slapped you and said, "Calm the fuck down. You got 2 months. You got one," you
Oh,
know? How I mean, in the meantime, what you can do, one thing that you learn as an adult or, should learn as an adult, and I'm not saying that you don't, just for anybody, is that you can't control other people. You got no control over other people, so you can't make them do anything. The only
oh,
thing that you can do is be responsible for you, and if you are worried about a location, then what you can do now is start scouting out a second location.
I don't know. It's that daddy Dom energy that I have, where I just want to hold people down and fuck common sense into them. I don't know.
I would not tell that person that.
No, I don't. I immediately regretted saying that because that is not the dynamic that we have at all. But I think it's like, no, I'm
Yeah,
not a dom. Like I don't wear the leather gauntlets and and all that shit and hang out at run fairs. But I am creatively. I am creatively. I'm definitely a dom. Lifestyle wise, no. You know.
sure. Sure. Well, I mean, ultimately, it's your project, so I mean, I don't blame you there.
Right.
Of course, you got other people involved, but I mean, it's your baby, so yeah, you got to do that. You have to have control of the situation because nobody else is going to.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's okay, but you also have to think, realistically. And again, if waiting that long is too much for you for an answer, then you have to just go, you know what? I'm just going to find somewhere else. If it's too much. If it's not too much, then you need to go, okay, I need to calm down. I've got this amount of time.
Right. Right. Right.
Keep,
Right.
keep asking the people, because I'll be honest with you, when I flake out on things, it's not because I did it on purpose or I have no interest. It's because I forget. So, and that could be the case here is that well, I mean, maybe not. I mean, maybe they didn't forget. I don't know. But you'll ask me shit and then I won't answer. And then you'll ask me days later and then eventually I answer. It just happens. I have a bad habit of looking at shit on my phone and then being like, oh, I'll respond to that later. Or I'm already doing something else and I'll look at it and just not even think about the fact that I'm looking at it and then forget all about it. I mean, so, you know. But then again, I don't have my shit together, so don't take advice from me.
I'm just asking to fill out a comment card. What's it like making stuff with pedo? Is it unbearable or no? I get you. I get you. You know.
It's not unbearable. I mean, you keep things on track, which is good because otherwise I'd just be fucking out here doing, I don't know, fucking up everything, so nothing would ever get done, it's a good thing. But yeah, and I mean, we've talked before just about like show scheduling and stuff like that, and I'm like, I need to get this together, and have I gotten any of it together yet? No, but
Well,
I should.
actually, you have because after this week's episode, we are like it's us and guests for the next shit
Month
5 fucking weeks or something. Yeah,
at
I
least,
mean,
yes,
and
and I
and
still
those
got more
were
people scheduled, so
yeah, and those were all booked by you. So I respectfully disagree with you there. You have been on fire as far as booking upcoming episodes on Wednesday. We talk weird. I don't
there
know how
you
much.
go.
I don't know how much you want to pimp that stuff in advance, but like,
I don't, just in case,
okay.
but
Just in case
yeah.
those creative people flake.
Right. I mean, life happens. You know what I mean? Things happen.
Right.
So I'm not gonna fucking put anybody under the gun like that and have it recorded. But, um, that's been the focus of my life lately is getting my shit together. And, man, it's been hard. I feel so distant from everybody, but I've just been really doing a lot of focusing on me and the things that I need to do. And, but yeah, that's been one of them. If you, as a listener, want to hear anybody in particular on the show, let us know. Let either myself or Pato know, and we will reach out to them and try our best to get them on the show. That's that offer still stands. If there's anybody that you suggest that you want to hear, just tell us and we'll bring them on.
Right on.
And if they've been on the show before, well, shame on you for not listening to all 121 episodes of the podcast. That's your fault. But I will redirect you to that point. So Okay, well, I went squatching this
How'd that
weekend.
go?
It went. It was actually pretty good. It wasn't what we expected, but it was okay. So I went with our friend of the show, Reverend Crimson Nicholas, with a million other titles that I don't know. Um, but we went and we had a spot, we had a location we were going to, but neither of us have ever been to this particular area of Ohio before. Well, that's not true. I've been there, but I've been on lots of drugs every time I've been there. Because it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's by this place called Camp Kern, and they got crazy fucking roads. So of course we'd fucking take drugs and go right around them. But there's a there's an old Native American museum there we had no idea about, and we ended up stopping off there and spent probably too much time at the Native American Museum, but it was neat. It was just about telling the history of Native Americans in Ohio and the different types and tribes, and just kind of from then until now. And there's a lot of white shaming at the end, which was pretty great, and that was cool. So at the end of it, they had a little gift shop, and we bought some things or whatever. And we're talking to the ladies and just saying, hey, we've never been here before. And they're like, oh yeah. And I told them, I was like, well, actually, we came out here to look for Bigfoot. And I do shit like that. One of the fans had mentioned they were kind of laughing at the fact that I was in a fucking dive bar a couple weeks ago asking somebody about Dogman. I do shit like that. It's my job. And so you kind of gauge their reaction, and their reaction was just they're like, oh yeah, he's out here in this area, and the one little old lady sitting there, because they're just a bunch of old ladies. Well, the one goes, well, she saw it and was talking about one of the ladies there, and I was like, oh really? So I immediately go up to her, start telling her to asking her about it, and she was like, yeah, I was just driving down the road, and there it was, crossing the road. And and we just kind of talked about you know science and how science doesn't accept Bigfoot, blah blah, blah, whatever. Anyway, then we went to like the actual kind of area where we're going to be really looking for Bigfoot at. It's kind of off of this bike trail. It was seen. So the reason why we're there is because the BFRO had a report of a mom and a daughter riding bikes on this bike trail, and fucking there it was, just chilling on the bike trail. And so, when you go the first time to a location, you have no idea what to expect, So the first time you go, you're kind of trying to figure out what to expect. When we went, it's pretty, for being where it's at, for being rural, it's pretty populated. It is a whole ass bike trail, but that bike trail's 60 miles long.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a big bike trail, and it all follows the Little Miami River here in Ohio. So you're kind of, when you're on the bike trail, you're like kind of walking around the river. We only had maybe about 25 minutes to be on the actual trail itself, and we didn't quite get to the location spot because there are coordinates for where this took place. But we're definitely going to go back out again and see.
That's the Loveland Frog River.
It is.
Yeah. Oh my
It is.
God.
It is, but it's a different town.
Yeah, no, I understand. Rivers run through multiple parts of the state.
Rivers are big. Yeah.
Right. They certainly are, aren't they? But that's interesting that it's the same river.
Well, the bike trail might lead down there. Like I said, it's 60 miles, so it very well could lead right into Loveland. I don't know. I haven't really tracked it, but yeah, this is Orgonia, Ohio is where it's at. But the whole area, the whole general, like I said, there's a camp there, and it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. There's nothing else. And just some of the things that I've seen, about the area and kind of what other areas it leads into, it leads into other areas of investigation that I've had on my radar. So it makes sense, and not necessarily just for Bigfoot, for other things too. So yeah, it was successful. We didn't find Bigfoot, but we found ourselves, and that's what matters.
And honestly, what would you have done if you came around a tree and came face to face with Bigfoot?
I would have died because I would have tried to pet it.
Oh.
Yeah, I would have died. Pulled out my camera and taken a very blurry video and pictures. What do you do when you see Bigfoot? I don't know. But yeah, so we were there, and granted, when you go out on these things, of course, seeing Bigfoot is the absolute goal. You're probably not going to.
Mm-hmm.
But your second goal is to gather evidence, footprints, possible hair samples. I hate them, but maybe even tree structures. I mean, that's something. Just kind of looking around the area and seeing the types of things that you can find out there is a good idea. But we're gonna go back and explore that part more. So
Rock and roll.
that's basically oh yeah, and then I watched more The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and God, you guys. I'm so disappointed. It's not good. I haven't finished it yet. There's 3 seasons of it, right? I'm on season 2, and I'm trying to watch it, and it's not going well. I catch, like, all these little fucking lies that they tell all the time, and then it's like when there is something, and it's like, "Oh, that might be something," then I'm like, "This is just fucking TV magic, isn't it? Like, this isn't actually real."
But I don't see. I couldn't. They don't find anything because if they did, it would be in the fucking news. Like
Right,
that's the
no.
thing. So that. How are you watching 3 seasons of a show that teases an outcome that it never reaches? Like that's why I could never wrap my head around it. Like how could you watch Bigfoot hunters or fucking something? Because if the second that crew found anything that would go to press immediately before the season was finished, before it hit the editor, before a single trailer was cut. You know what I mean? That would make national headlines, international headlines. It would be all over the place. Biggest story of our century, you know? So it's like, what do you think is going to happen in Skinwalker Ranch episode fucking 2 of 3? Like
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean,
Nothing.
yes and no, because, like, when we did the Skinwalker Ranch episode, I'll tell you, the story about the one guy who saw the fucking portal and the things crawling out of the portal, I 1000% believe that story. There is absolutely no reason why that would be a fake story. None. These weren't just people. These were
Sure.
scientists, and their job was to study this stuff. I believe that story. And to me, that's big, right? To all of us weirdos, that's big. So, like, could they find those things that are big but don't necessarily prove anything? Yeah, absolutely. Because that's kind of what all this is. I mean, they're not going to really prove anything, in my opinion, because these things aren't of our world. So we don't know. We don't understand how it works anyway.
Mhm.
But even as those things come out, there's not going to be a big press conference held about it. That's never going to happen. If there was Bigfoot, it's probably not going to be a big press conference about it. It's just going to be a random article that you see scrolling down Twitter one day or whatever. And that's just the climate that we live in now. So I mean, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna. I was saying that I'm not gonna watch this anymore. But then I look on my Twitter one day, and on, like, my, I guess, For You page. This is like your For You page, but for Twitter. Skinwalker Ranch was kind of trending up there, and I'm looking, and the guy that owns it, Brandon Fugel or whatever, he's, like, on there vehemently defending a lot of the things that's said on the show or whatever, and I'm like, I really want to get into this Twitter argument with this guy, but I also haven't watched the show. So let me watch the show just so I can get on there and fucking argue with him and be like, you know what? I don't believe you. I think you're doing this for money because, for one, you won't let my team come out there and investigate it. You won't let anybody else's team come out and investigate it. The only person that you're allowing out there are people on the show. And you won't go on anybody's shows to talk about it. You won't come on my podcast to talk about it because you don't want to get fucking drilled because you know that the shit is bullshit. That's what you know. So I don't know. I just don't recommend it. That's my 2 cents about it. I don't recommend The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. I haven't finished it, and I will finish it at this point. I'm already invested, but it's, if you want to hear good Skinwalker Ranch information, we did a whole episode about it. Go listen to it. It's
We
the best
sure did.
information out there. Yeah, we did a damn good job. And I'm still stuck at that same conclusion that we came at the end of that episode, that there is nothing happening there now, really. So not anything compared to what has been. I mean, especially because they've lied about shit too. I mean, that's another thing. They've lied about stuff, and it's like, at some point they were looking at some guy's research on UFOs or whatever, and the guy's got, like, he's, like, classified these UFOs, and he's just organized the sightings. That's all. And they're on there, and they're like, "Well, nobody's ever done this before. Nobody's ever done research like this before." And it's like, well, that's not fucking true. Just go to fucking, just get on Twitter and fucking look at the UFO bros. People do that shit all the time. Like, that's always been done. So I don't know. It's just dumb. But anyway, that was my weekend.
Oh, exciting.
So I got one piece of news, and it literally just happened.
Good thing we recorded this one late.
While we were recording this, literally just happened. There have been fossils found in a river of a plesiosaur, a river in Morocco. And the reason why that's big news is because science has been saying for a long time that Nessie cannot be a plesiosaur because they lived in salt water. We found plesiosaur bones in a river.
In a freshwater river, yeah.
So, well, that's interesting. What does that mean? It was conducted by some British university. Again, it literally just happened while we're recording this, so I don't know the exact details yet. But that's probably it, really. It's probably some British university found some fossils in a freshwater river. So, plesiosaur is now back on the table for Nessie, I guess. We did a great episode on Nessie, too. You guys should go listen to that also. So, that is something. But anyway, that's all I got. That's all I got for the news.
There's something I wanted to bring up. He's a TikTok guy, and he posts some really great content, and I sent it your way. But I just want to give him a quick plug. Max Powers. He's on YouTube now too, and his TikTok address is Para PARASYKE Talk TOK Parapsychtalk. And like I said, he's got a YouTube channel too, and he does all kinds of content where he talks about urban legends and stuff that's been in the news, and I would love to have him on the show. I know me and you've kind of talked about it a little bit in the past.
I've tried to find a way to get a hold of him. I can't find one.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can apply myself a little bit too. He just did a 2-part series this week about like giant spiders in Antarctica, and supposedly there's Google Earth images of these things walking around, and there's some guy that came forward that his father was in the Air Force and ran into these things, and the whole mythology behind it. It was fascinating. I don't know how true it was. It sounded a lot like The Thing, the John Carpenter movie from the fucking the best horror movie ever made. Of course, you know what The Thing is, but super interesting. So that's the only kind of news I got. Check that dude out.
Well, okay, that is very interesting.
There you go.
Then I sound interested.
No, you sound like you're whatever, man.
You got my customer service voice on. Yeah, well,
Yes.
that's very interesting. Wow.
Wow. Okay. So, what kind of payment am I setting you up for today?
Yeah. All right. So about this payment, no.
Right. I like how in your off hours you're a FinDom.
I am, yeah.
You are, like, that's literally like what you fucking do. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to be a sex worker. Yeah, right. You're a fucking professional FinDom. I think you'll figure it out.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Anyway, we won't get into that one. This episode. This is, well, you know what? I'll tell you. This episode's gonna turn very sad very quickly. And, you know why? Because I say this every week. You've already read it. You know what the show's about. It's about the Kool-Aid Man, right?
Right. Well, not actually Kool-Aid, but
no, it's the Flavor Aid Man.
Yeah, right. That's you always start these episodes off by asking, or these segments off by asking me, so what did you know about Jim Jones going into this? And I'm like, well, the only thing I knew ended up being completely fucking wrong. And the only thing I knew about Jim Jones is that he was the dude that made everyone drink the Kool-Aid. And at the end of the day, no, it was not Kool-Aid. It was the President's Choice Kool-Aid, Flavor Aid.
President's Choice.
And so I didn't even know what I thought I fucking knew. So this whole thing was an eye-opening experience for me.
I will agree with that. Being the true crime person that I am, I've never deep dived Jim Jones. This is the first time.
Really?
That I've really looked into it. And I mean, I knew about it. You know what I mean? I knew. Everybody knows who fucking Jim Jones is.
Dude, I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know about the the congressman, you know what I mean, or the officials that were there that what instigated the whole. I didn't know any of this shit. It
I
was
knew that part, I guess, so that part didn't come as like, I knew the very, very, very end, but that was it. That's all I knew.
yeah.
And so I didn't really understand how and who everybody was. So I'm gonna preface it by saying this. Like I said, it's going to get very, very, very sad. I'm gonna tell you that right now. And it's going to get kind of dark, but there's a lot of people involved in this. It's not just Jim Jones, and I'm not going to fucking name any of them except for the one congressman because it's too confusing. I'll be honest with you. Even doing the research for it was a lot. So, Jim Jones, I don't know what year he was born. It doesn't matter what year he was born, but Jim Jones was born into
1931.
poverty. Look at you. You have the facts at the ready.
May 13th,
Um,
1931.
you knew it. He was born into extreme poverty and very neglectful parents because of it. His dad was a disabled war veteran and disabled because he was sprayed with chemicals in the war. He had all kinds of fucked up issues, and then his mother had to work a lot, or at least attempted to work a lot. Or she just kind of didn't really possess many maternal instincts, so she kind of just ignored Jimmy a lot as a child, and everybody knew it. The whole neighborhood kind of knew that they were extremely poor. A lady, I can't remember her name, ended up kind of taking him under her wing quite a bit when he was very young, and introduced him to the Bible. And let me tell you, he fucking took that Bible and he just ran with it. He loved the shit out of the Bible. He fucking loved that book a lot. And he would preach it to everybody. But because he was preaching the Bible to everybody, it kind of isolated him from his peer groups and things like that. Other kids thought he was fucking weird. And of course they did. They were trying to get blowjobs and smoke cigarettes, and he was telling them that they were going to go to hell for it. I mean, who wants to hang out with that fucking kid? Little tattletale ass, telling Jesus on you and shit. Nobody. So he had a lot of issues kind of integrating into society, just because he clinged onto this thing a lot. Some people said that he was kind of obsessed with death. Um, even reporting that he would murder animals just to have burials for them, but I don't think that's actually true. I think that he would like scoop up roadkill or neighborhood pets that died, and he would have like ceremonies for them. He wanted to be a preacher. Jim Jones wanted to be some type of pastor his
Right.
entire life,
Well,
basically.
that's something. So he was born in Indiana, spent the first part of his life there. And when you talk about rural poverty, they lean towards religion more than most people.
Sure,
I think when we
that's all
think
they
about,
got.
yeah, exactly, and when we think about devout Christians, and when we think about the right wing, we think about all this stuff. We have a tendency to imagine these super rich mega churches, the righteous gemstones, and that's a part of it. Don't get me wrong. There's those people out there too, but the other portion of society where religion can be very, very heavy is in the lower class, because like you said, it's all they have. Especially with him growing up in poverty in Indiana, he was living in a kind of like a desegregated situation, I guess is the way to put it. This was during the time of segregation, still, obviously, but when you're that fucking poor, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everyone's living together. So his kind of upbringing as his introduction to religion came from a lot of the black evangelical Baptist preachers tent revival type thing, and it's always interesting when you see white people kind of co-opt, like we had last week with Elvis, that type of environment and that type of persona and charisma, and then adapt it to a white audience, how well it sells. Because white people, it's like it's smallpox to the Indians. We have no inoculation against that. We're
Right.
not prepared for that kind of charisma and whipping a crowd up to a frenzy. So when he did finally get involved in religion, he brought that background with him, and it kind of helped him gather a fan base. Even though, not to skip ahead too much, when we do get to Jonestown, it was a very, very desegregated population. It was not just a bunch of white people out there doing that stuff.
Right,
He, you
right.
know, it was everybody, but that was kind of the socialist utopia that he was going for.
Yeah. They, well, so right. So growing up where he did, he had experienced a lot of, he didn't experience it, but he had watched a lot of racism and he had a
Right.
problem with it.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, this shit isn't okay." And so as he is also going through, trying to learn how to be a pastor and trying to learn how to, um, trying to make a plan for human rights, going forward. He's also doing a lot of studying on politics and other religions and things like that. And with politics, I mean, he was a big fan of, studying about these crude dictators. He was a big fan of studying about Hitler. He was a big fan of studying, which of course Hitler was right. I mean, as he's growing up, that's all happening, right?
Mhm.
He's a big fan of studying, Karl Marx. He got really, really, really into communism just in general. He was a big fan of Mao. Um, he really enjoyed the politics aspect as well. And in his mind was kind of intertwining all of these things. And, we didn't even know it yet. Nobody did. So later on down the line, a little bit later on down the line, he meets up with a man. I can't remember his name. Doesn't matter. A faith healer. He meets up with a faith healer, very popular white faith healer. And this man kind of also takes a young Jim Jones. Now, he wasn't a teenager anymore. This is a little bit his young adulthood. He was married at this point. He dated a girl and married her and stayed married to her for the rest of his life. But that we'll get to that later. Um, but he met this man, this faith healer, who would take him, he would kind of follow him around on these tours. And he thought it was absolutely amazing what the guy was doing. Not because he was actually faith healing, but because he was learning to, quote unquote faith heal, which is a very deceptive practice. In case you didn't know, it's not real. Somebody actually needs to tell you that it's not real. I mean, it's basically like being an illusionist, but for religion,
Mhm.
and getting people's hopes up. But this man, I mean, he would go and Jim was fascinated by the fact that this guy knew these people's names and knew their life stories, and I mean, he really bought into it. So he's kind of taken up under this guy, and this guy's teaching him how to do things, and then it gets to the point to where he would start taking Jim Jones with him to preach at these events. So it was a big deal. So in 1955, the People's Temple is officially started. Um, you know, Jim Jones wanted to create his own little, section because again, that was his deal. He wanted to be a pastor. That was the thing. And at that time, he was selling it with this faith healing. And he would go out, and I mean, he would raise crowds in hundreds. He would have people come out, hopeful of getting some of the faith healing. And then they actually liked the things that he was saying also, because while he's on stage, he's also preaching about equality. And it's kind of crazy hearing some of the ideas that he was pushing out there, because most of us in today's day and age, we would have been like, "Oh hell yeah, brother."
Right.
He was preaching some really important stuff. I mean, he was kind of starting to, he wasn't denouncing Christianity, but one of his big things about Christianity was that it wasn't, it was a terrible thing. It was used to oppress women and non-whites. He said that. He said that the Bible was used for that. And now, granted, this was kind of slowly over the years he started getting there, but it was before Jonestown that he gained this following, because he wanted to create something of his own. And
Well,
again,
he
oh,
was
go ahead.
railing against the religious conservatism of urban America in the South, and
He
where
was, yeah,
where that was, the two went hand in hand. And once again, you're talking about the late 50s, early 60s, and you had the hippie movement, the anti-war movement. We were in the middle of the Cold War. You had, the beatniks had kind of done their thing already. You had the jazz music and drug culture and all that stuff was all starting to come about. And there he was preaching liberalism and religion. And that was something that was very, very new. You don't get that. To this day, you don't get that a lot.
No.
You know what I mean? You don't have very if you consider yourself a liberal, it's hard to be a hardline religious person too, and kind of neither camp wants you. Most I'm not saying most liberal people are not religious by nature, but there's a lot of stuff about Christianity and organized religion that is not very open and accepting or tolerant, you know. And if you look at a lot of the driving forces in this country politically, uh, religion and conservatism go hand in hand, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
he spoke to a very large number of people, a lot of which were black for obvious reasons, that wanted to retain their faith but couldn't sign on with white conservative America.
Right.
And that was where he found his army. And that is what every good cult leader does.
Yeah.
Is they
Yeah.
find an army to mobilize. And he had a rainbow. He was the originator of the Rainbow Coalition. When we get into like his family, his actual family unit, he adopted and he had foster kids, and black, white didn't matter. Asian, you know what I mean? He really was. He's a very tragic figure, I think, because he got a lot of things right. And I hate to say that because it sounds like I'm talking about Hitler, even though hello, but
Well,
he had a lot of good ideas. Jim
he
Jones
did.
had a lot of good ideas.
He really did. And I like I said, there's so fucking much to all of this even before. I mean, this is 20 years before Jonestown.
Yeah,
There's so much to it that I highly highly recommend looking into it. It is very fascinating.
fascinating. PBS had a great documentary. I stole all my info from PBS, but I'm sure there's tons of resources. I will read a book about this at some point because it is fascinating. I learned so much from this episode. I'll quit interjecting now. I'm letting you do your thing.
It's okay. We'll get there. I promise. And if I miss anything, I mean, and I'm going by year. So once I hit my year mark, Pat, if you hear something I didn't hit in the previous years, you tell me. Um, so so he's going around. He's not only going around on these like tours, right? He's on his tour. He's doing his thing. He's also going to civil rights marches and protests, and
Uh,
he is giving speeches there. And again, that's what we were talking about. He's targeting this specific demographic of people, right? And at the time, black people, or we won't even say black people, just non-whites, right?
mm,
Mostly black, but non-whites were very vulnerable because they felt like they had no allies. And Jim Jones came in and was like, I'm your ally, and guess what, we have an entire group of people that are also your allies, join us. He didn't say join us, but he was getting people to come and join his church, and it just kept growing. And I mean, people were really about it. He was really popular, to the point to where he started getting press coverage. He was in the news a lot. Specific members of Congress and things like that started recognizing him. A lot of people were publicly endorsing this man, going, yeah, he's really doing great, wonderful things. And you know what? At the time he was, and Pat's right. He ended up adopting a bunch of non-white children. He had adopted 3 Korean kids, and then like ran a campaign throughout the church encouraging other people to adopt Korean kids. Um, all these things are great. I don't, there's nothing wrong with them up till this point. He's doing a good job. And, we'll kind of backtrack on some of those things. But as the years kind of started to go, he started becoming increasingly paranoid, and for good reason. Let me tell you something. If you're a white person fighting for black people, and around the 1950s, 1960s, you're getting a lot of death threats.
right, and well, it was also Cold War stuff too. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah.
had a big phobia about nuclear war and
Hmm.
the geopolitics that were kind of emerging post World War II. So, it's interesting. So much stuff. This kind of came at perfect timing because that Jim Jones paranoia, it's still alive today. Like I said, I was just in that conceal and carry class, and
Yeah.
there's still people that really think that, like, the government's going to start going door to door, and it's like, well, like what, your cousins that are in the army, like they're going to come and, like, come on, like, it's not
Yeah.
probably not gonna happen. But yeah, there was a height of that because you had the Vietnam War, you had the draft, you had post World War II Cold War. Um, So, and yeah, he thought he was being followed, and honestly, he probably was. Are you kidding
Well,
me?
he
Like fucking
was.
Hoover and the CIA? Yeah.
The FBI at one point spoke with his mother,
Mhm.
because, again, he was very active within civil rights communities, and they were concerned. I mean, we all know that the US government killed Martin Luther King Jr. That's not
Yep.
everybody knows that.
And Robert Kennedy in the same fucking year.
In the
So
same fucking year. We should talk about that sometime on the show. Um, but yeah, I mean, we all know that that happened. So yeah, they were interested in him for a minute, not because of his religion or anything like that, just because of the figure that he was at the time. So he was becoming increasingly paranoid, and probably very egotistical at this time. Again, he probably had about 1,000 or so followers at this point, and that number is just continuing to grow. And he ended up, the church started becoming bigger and bigger. In 1961, he had a vision that there was going to be a nuclear attack, specifically on Indiana, and that the world would end on July 25th, 1967.
never, guys, never name a date because you're always gonna be wrong.
You're gonna
Just,
be wrong,
just
and
be
guess what?
vague.
He was wrong.
Yeah.
But but that was his vision, he allegedly. That's what he thought was going to happen, that the world was going to end. And at this time again, the church is picking up steam, but something else had happened. He now, with that vision, has this inspiration to start some type of commune, to bring all of his church followers to one spot, and he's looking for a place to do that. So he ends up traveling for a little while, to South America, and because he heard that they were more accepting of the types of views that he has. And what he means by those types of views is communism. But he was always too afraid to really say it, at this point, because communism was a hot button topic at this time. But he went and he left the country for a while, and kind of traveled around South America looking for a good spot. And the church started failing because of his absence. It started kind of going downhill. And the other guy that ran it, I can't remember his fucking name. He had another, like, a guy that was like his partner in crime for a long time. Oh, it didn't matter. He basically, contacted Jim Jones and said, "Look, if you don't get back here and start running this shit again, I'm just going to close up shop and I'm done. Like, we're losing money." So Jim Jones comes back, and with this inspiration to build this commune, he starts, traveling around again, getting his followers back, because the population of the church had dwindled down to, I think, about 200 or so people, which was a
Mhm.
lot less at their 1,000 and so that they had. So he starts getting more followers in, but not just that. He is now moving people into the church, or at least, he's buying out new properties and moving people in, and he's starting to build this community of people. And anybody that moved into the church, they're giving him everything, all of their money, all of their possessions. He's getting all of it. And at the same time, he starts building a council. Now, the council is extremely strict, because they're following Jim Jones rules. In the middle of this all happening, and him starting to build this community, he ends up moving from Indiana to California.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
He still has a church, or churches, I think, a couple of them in Indiana under a specific congregation or something. I don't know. Doesn't matter. So he moves to Redwoods, California, and then that's when he really starts picking it up and having people live, because he's got this bigger piece of property, right? He's got people living there, and then the rules of this area start becoming different,
Right.
worse.
And the population that he was drawing from by being centered in California, you had the hippie movement, you
Oh
had the
yeah.
San Francisco movement, you had people with money too.
Oh yeah.
This was the first time that he was drawing upon a middle and upper class talent pool, let's say. So whereas step one was kind of, you got to build the foundation of the pyramid. You go around the Midwest and the rural areas of the South, and you kind of collect all these lower middle class people who don't have a lot of money. Okay, fine. You got your work. You got your labor force now. When you get to Cali, that's when you start filling out the middle of the pyramid, and you start getting the people with money to join on, and that's when that my impression was that was even though he'd been to South America before, that's really how he gained the means
Oh,
to
yeah.
kind of fund these bigger operations, because he had the money from the Californians to buy the land. And then he had, because when he bought Jonestown in South America, he bought the fucking jungle. It was just jungle. But luckily, he still had all of this labor from Middle America and the South to send down there and have them start clearing the forest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was a process,
Yeah.
to get there. I mean, he had bought it a couple of years before they moved there permanently, and he moved there prematurely, actually. But we'll get there. Um, so I agree with that. He gets to California.
We need to put that on a fucking t-shirt. We'll
We'll
get
get
there.
there. Sl slow it down there. Um,
Am I going too fast? It's gonna happen too
go
soon? Yeah,
go
that's the
go
fucking
too
story of my
fast.
life. Yeah, all right.
We know we talked about it in the beginning. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I? Um, so he gets to California, and something else had happened as well when he gets to California. Jim Jones, he started doing drug. He started taking drug.
When he started taking LSD?
All the drug. All of them. He was taking everything. I don't think nobody, people name dropped some things, and then they did an autopsy on his corpse, and there was like enough drugs to kill the average 5 people, but not him, because he had to do it with a gunshot. But anyway, so he was very much addicted to a lot of drugs, but he started doing them in California. Of course, that's what you do in
Right.
California.
Sure.
Um, so while he's starting to take drugs, again, the church itself is starting to ramp up. They're starting to come up with ridiculous fucking rules. At that point in time, Jim Jones has control over who can marry who. He's got control over how these people spend their day. Because again, they're giving up everything that they have, and they're moving into the church, and they're living on the property. And the rules were so strict. I mean, if you did not follow them, there were punishments. Um, Jim Jones started taking, I'm not going to say sexual favors, because that's not really what it is. I mean, what it was he would tell women, if you have sex with me, I'll give you extra food rations, or I'll make your work schedule next week not so terrible. Um, there were allegations. It's true.
I need to put a padlock on my fridge.
Jesus, no,
You
we're
want
not.
some Pringles? How bad you want those Pringles? Come here. Come here, baby.
I guess it worked for Jim Jones. Um, there was an allegation that he had allegedly raped one of the males in the congregation. That guy
Wow.
that guy had left, but then obviously didn't pursue charges, because it's the 1960s, and you don't do that. You don't talk about that kind of thing. Um,
Oh, that's
they're,
terrible.
like I said, they're doing stuff like controlling people's food rations if they break the rules and they starve. They are giving extra work to people. They're publicly shaming folks that do bad. So I mean, it's not great at this point, right? It's not great.
Going back to something else, I love it when like everything we talk about during the course of the show seems to come together. But listen, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be a creative person, sometimes you got to crack the whip. All right, we discussed this in the intro. Okay, but like in all of my creative endeavors and all the times that I had to be, the director or producer of the project, exerting that daddy dom energy, I never rationed anyone's food. You know what I mean? Like there's a way to you do have somebody has to be in charge, and Jim Jones was in charge. Okay, you get all these people willing to like give up all their possessions to come live with you. The next thing they're going to do is ask you, "What do you want me to do next?" And
Right.
when you have hundreds upon thousands of people looking at you with doe eyes after giving you everything they own and say, "What do you want me to do next?" You're going to say, okay, well, you 15 over here start painting this house. You 10 start building a garden in the back, right? Because you got to give them something to fucking do.
Yeah.
But when you start withholding food from people to punish them, I guess it's like, are you going to come up with a jail system? Are you going to do corporal punishment? How do you discipline people? How do you keep people in line? How do you effectively manage a group that large? I guess food rationing is one way to do it. The rape part is disturbing. I mean, I've run a lot of movie sets before. I've never had to rape anyone to get them to get their fucking lines right, you know. But like, I mean, it's sad that it took that kind of turn. But at the same time, how else do you expect one guy to control thousands of people?
So are you saying that
I'm not saying anything.
hold on, are you saying that what you do is just fine because you're not Jim Jones level of cracking the whip? Is
Well,
it
I also don't have thousands of people I'm trying to keep in line. I mean, there's a couple dozen tops.
not yet, but Jim Jones didn't at first either.
Right? You gotta
Um,
start out small.
you
See, I'm
gotta
trying to put that padlock on the fridge.
start your little congregation somewhere, exactly.
Right.
Um, so by the time that he's in California, and at that point in time, I think he had 3 different congregations there throughout California.
Mhm.
And so again, he's getting large. He's people are following him. I mean, he's topping 3,000 followers, and that's a lot. That's as many followers as I have on Twitter.
Oh my god.
And all my social medias combined, I have more followers than Jim Jones. That's cool.
That is sure.
That's something to write home about. That
Right.
should be a T-shirt. I have more followers than Jim Jones. That's a good idea. Ooh, I think I'm gonna do it.
That is a good one, and then
That's a good one.
then you gotta
I'm
put the
doing it.
Twitter symbol on there, Twitter, Instagram, the 3, yeah.
I'm doing that one. Um, anyway, so he's got these 3 churches. Meanwhile, he still has the church back in Indiana. He didn't. It's still his. Um, but this group of psychologists, the Indiana State Psychology Board, start to investigate Jim Jones. Just because I don't know, they're curious, I guess. I think they kind of got into it mostly because they were interested in the faith healing stuff, and they were faith healing was kind of big around that time, and they were interested in kind of breaking that apart and talking about the people that follow that kind of thing. And anyway, they had uncovered a lot about his faith healing. They had kind of broken the illusion. They had told the magician's tricks to everybody and said, well, these things didn't happen. That tumor that you saw that person spit out, that was a chicken gizzard held in their mouth until it was time.
Oh,
Those people that you thought were, that Jim Jones didn't know, well, they were part of the church the whole time. They traveled with them. And they broke it apart. And what are you doing?
making another drink. Oh,
Jesus.
Flavor Aid.
I'm like, you making some flavor aid, are you?
Flavor Aid with Captain Morgan.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, like I told you, this is my Leaving Las Vegas episode. So I can
Wow.
see.
Anyway, so they're investigating Jim Jones, and this makes Jim Jones very nervous.
Sure.
He is now thinking that the police are going to come after him. They're going to come for him. Why? I don't, because he's a communist. That's why. But that's what he thinks. That's what he thinks is going to happen. And now, meanwhile, the Indiana Psychology Board, they did approach the authorities and said, you need to do something about this guy. And they were like, we can't do shit about it. Those people are all there on their own free will. We can't do anything about it. So they didn't even look into it. The police didn't even look into it. But Jim Jones, he's like, the police are coming. So in 1973, he purchases a plot of land in, what is it, Guyana?
Yeah, South America. That's just
South
what I'm gonna
America.
say, yeah.
Yeah, he purchases a plot of land. The
You
jungle.
motherfuckers ain't going there. What do you
You're not
mean
going
you don't want to? You don't need to tell the person at Southwest what the name of the place is. You ain't
I mean,
going.
they might. I don't know. Our listeners might have traveling to South America to tour money. I
Sure.
don't. But whatever. Anyway, so so he purchases this plot of land in 1973 and starts moving people there and establishing Jonestown.
Mhm.
It's not quite established yet. Because it's, he's working on it. It takes a lot. And again, it is a whole ass chunk of the jungle that they're in. So while he's working on that, he's managing things at home, and he's just getting increasingly paranoid. So in 1977, he finally moved everybody to Jonestown. Now, Jonestown was only really set up for about 300 people.
Mhm.
And he moved, I think, a couple thousand there. Well, it wasn't quite a couple. It was like 1,000 and something.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even equipped to handle that many people. But because he was so paranoid and told all these people, the police are coming for us, and what they're going to do is they're going to, lock us all in cages. They're gonna kill us like they did the Jews. They're gonna experiment on us. They're gonna take our children. Everybody moved with them, or most people moved with them. There are a lot of other circumstances at play around this time and all those things. But again, if you want to know more, go find out more. There's a lot to this. There's like a 4-hour long documentary on this, and that's probably the most comprehensive that there is. And it probably still doesn't cover everything. So that's just your bit of information. So while he's in Jonestown, a group of family members of some of these people that moved form a group.
Yes.
They form like a coalition. It's the Concerned Relatives group. One of them happened to be, or two of them, as a matter of fact, happened to be a man and a woman. The woman was having a sexual relationship with Jim Jones and had a baby. And she was also married. Okay. So there was a weird possibility of a custody battle, but instead of that happening, the husband was kicked out of the group and he went on to form the Concerned Relatives group. And the woman just straight up left the child there with Jim. I don't know if it was ever proven if that child was his or not. I don't know if that one lived or not. I think he did. But that part doesn't matter. So, I mean, again, a lot of moving parts to all this. Anyway, while they are in Jonestown, Jim starts having these things that he's calling white nights. And these are drills. So at one point in time, he gathers everybody up in the center of the little village there, gives a big old speech, talks about, how they're getting ready to be killed or whatever. So everybody needs to kill themselves, and gets all these people to drink Flavor Aid and told them that it had poison in it. And then was like, oh, well, that was just a drill. There's no poison in it. So he is already preparing all these people for a mass suicide. He had been prepping them for a mass suicide. So meanwhile, the Concerned Relatives group get into contact with members of Congress. And one person that took a particular interest in it was Congressman Leo Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was like, well, I'm going to go there because rumors are starting to come up that people are going to Jonestown and then they're not allowed to leave. And that people are being held captive there, basically. And, just people are concerned about this whole group. So Leo Ryan goes, you know what? I'm going to get a group of people. We're going to go down there. We're going to go see what the fuck's going on. So he does. So he takes himself. He takes, I believe, some NBC reporters or some shit.
Right.
Some cameramen, and they all go down there. And there is footage of, kind of him talking to Jim Jones and all that. At one point in time, a woman handed Leo Ryan a note asking him to sneak her out. And he took that note and confronted Jim Jones about it and was like, look, these people want to leave and you're not letting them. And then he goes on this big speech about how, oh no, they're allowed to leave. They're just playing games. People are just playing games. It's just a game. And I think that, had it not been for that note being brought to his attention, this would have went differently. I think it would have. But it was brought to his attention, and Leo Ryan and his crew were supposed to be there for a couple of days, but they ended up leaving on day 2 when one of the members of the group decided to attack him with a knife. But he escaped it, right? He narrowly escaped that. And, he is leaving now at this point. They're like, well, we got to get the fuck out of here. We just got attacked. We're going to leave. And while he's leaving, 15 other members wanted to go with him. So he took them. He said, okay, come with me. And they leave Jonestown and they go to get on the plane. And when they're getting on the plane, Jonestown had like a security team around the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
There were people. And what the people there were told they were doing was they were protecting anybody from coming in because they were convinced that people were after them and wanted to attack them or whatever. But realistically, those people around the perimeter were also keeping people in. And that really was their main job, was to make sure nobody left. But while Leo Ryan and his crew are boarding their planes, a couple of those guards come out from the jungle. And then one of the defectors of the group pulls out a gun and starts shooting.
Yeah, there was a plant in the group that said they wanted to leave. He was actually armed the whole time and had the intention of killing them when they reached the airstrip. And a gun battle ensued on the airstrip, and pretty much everybody died. So I guess the final, not to give away the final, I don't want to jump to the end, but of I'm trying to do the math real quick. I'm usually really good at math. 633 people died at Jonestown.
No,
No, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
909.
909 were the inhabitants, but the death toll, 918 was the inhabitants. So 9 people with the were with Leo Ryan's entourage.
Mhm.
So that includes, like I said, the NBC camera people, his congressional aides or whatever, and yeah.
Right. So yeah, so they all died, and that happened. So while that's happening, George Jones gathers up his people and he tells them what's going on, and he's telling them that, well, guess what's happening right now? That congressman is being shot. The pilot's being shot. Those people aren't leaving. And now, because we have killed these people, we have to kill ourselves or we're going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And so he pulls out the flavor aid, the real deal this time. And he is telling people, you know what? This is the only way. We're not committing suicide. We are committing a protest via suicide. And all the while, all of this can be heard. All this whole conversation can be heard. It was all recorded. Most of these sermons that he put on were recorded. He would give sermons multiple times a day, but you can hear it all. And while that's happening, I mean, he actually asked if there's anybody that objects to this, really, and people start objecting to it. One woman in particular argues for quite a while, saying, "No, there's other ways. What about Russia? We can get Russia on our side." He's like, well, Russia's not going to want anything to do with us because of all this stigma surrounding us, because the whole world hates us. You've got people trying to formulate a plan. He's like, well, we can't leave quick enough. We can't flee quick enough. And, there's too many of us and there's not enough resources for us to even do anything. This is literally the only way. And so, there's a lot of people that are cheering him on. You can hear them. They're like, oh, yeah, that's right. And they're all for it. They can't wait to unalive themselves. But there are a lot of people that are not. They're excited. They're like, I can't, this has been long enough. But there are a lot of people that did not want to. That's the thing about Jonestown. And one thing that a lot of people, I don't think they get it wrong so much anymore, but I know it's been something people have talked about, how they were all willing participants. Well, they weren't. There were a lot of children. I think about a third of the people that died were children. And, they were forced to drink this. I mean, it was just parents, pouring the Kool-Aid down their throats.
Right.
The people that wouldn't do it were injected with the Kool-Aid, the flavor aid. They were forcing people to do this. And, again, while you're listening in on these recordings, it's kind of a weird thing. And I had to check, because I did listen to it. It's the first time I've ever listened to it, was today.
The death tape, I figured that was something that you had downloaded on E-Bombs World back in the fucking early
No, because it's fucking 45 minutes long. You don't actually see anything, So right. I'm a visual learner. But no, today's the first day I've ever actually listened to it. And, it's hard because, like, they're not even drinking the Kool-Aid yet. And, like, fucking people are crying and the kids are crying. And he's, like, yelling at people to, like, make them shut the kids up and, like, die with dignity. And
yeah,
I mean, listen, if you want to have a bad day, okay, if you just want to fucking absolutely obliterate your day, listen to the fucking Jonestown death tape. It's terrible. And like I said, they don't even drink the shit until the end. And I don't know, it seems like the tape is edited. I don't know if there's pieces missing, because you don't actually hear the people dying. Like, it's weird.
Well, you got to think of, like, why did he do this? And
hold on, we're not there yet. You keep jumping ahead.
All right.
We gotta talk about the gory details. People want to know the gory details.
Okay.
So anyway, I mean, that's pretty much it for the gory details. It's sad, like I said, that the tape is sad. Eventually, like, while he's giving the sermon, there's like something preaching or chanting or something playing over like a loudspeaker. Like, you can hear it the whole time. And at like the very end of the tape, it's just dead fucking silent, because all those people are dead,
right.
Dead fucking silent. and then like the tape starts distorting. I mean, it's real eerie shit, real weird. And at first I was like, is this just like the edit that I'm listening to? Somebody put it on fucking YouTube and thought it'd be weird to do that. Like, no, that's just how it sounds because I don't know, it stops working. I don't know. 85 people survived though. 85 of them. And I want to talk about the one fucking badass. I don't know her name. I don't know her name, but there's one elderly woman. Listen, this woman survived because she slept through the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, the one that slept under the bed or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slept through the whole fucking thing and lived. But there were some of Leo Ryan's crew, I think it was like one man, or some of them lived.
Well, the only person to be prosecuted for it was the guy that was the Larry Layton. He was the guy that pretended that he wanted to go.
Yeah, he was the plant.
Right. And because he was subdued when he pulled out the gun and started shooting people, he was wounded and subdued, and was arrested later at the airstrip. So the only guy to like really face charges for that shit, you know. And then there was also, and I can't find it in my notes, but I had it. But one of Jim Jones' kids was playing basketball in Georgetown.
3 of them.
Yes, and then all right. So then you got that info. I'll let you get to it when you get to it.
Well, I wasn't gonna say that. So some of these survivors was because they had a basketball team and they were playing away.
Right, and then but they were still notified to off yourself, and some of them did. I think, what is it? 5 of them did.
Oh, so you don't have that information?
Oh, it's not a pissing contest, Ashley. But yeah, some of them killed themselves, and some of them did not.
His kids did not.
4 died in Georgetown, so I don't know who those 4 were, but it was somebody.
Was there a fucking messenger that came to Georgetown and was like, "You got to kill yourself"?
Yeah, or they called them or something. I don't know.
Like, I guess it could have been playing a fucking basketball game. Man. Like, you got to kill yourself. Okay, I'm doing it now.
They were given orders over radio to commit suicide. One loyal member did, using a knife to slit the throats of her 3 children before killing herself. Who are these fucking people killing their kids? Jesus.
Oh yeah, killing their kids.
I mean, I hate my kids sometimes, but I wouldn't fucking kill them.
A lot of the protest
not like that
from parents that didn't want to kill. It was mostly from parents.
Yes.
A lot of them wanted the kid. That was one of the arguments that was being made was, well, our children will be fine. They're not going to prosecute our kids. Let them live.
Well, the only people they were going to prosecute was Jim Jones, but I think they were probably afraid of, he wanted to get rid of the witnesses. That's what this whole thing was that he had his little fiefdom that was about to come crashing down. He realized that the authorities were going to fucking storm that place and take everyone out of there and interview everybody. And everyone was going to have like horrible shit to say about the stuff that he did. So he figured, if I kill everybody, then I won't go to jail. Then he ends up killing himself. So it's like, I don't know. That doesn't fucking make much sense. He wasn't mentally sound at the time. Let's just say that.
He was very, 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 let me emphasize this, very high.
Right.
He was very high. And they did find that out. Why he did this. I mean, okay, so it is premeditated.
Right.
He knew, right? He knew that because he had done drills on it, and just to see if these people would do it, because he was going to do it at some point. When that idea popped up, nobody really knows. His wife had mentioned, now she died too, during all this, but she had mentioned that he was growing increasingly paranoid over the years, and he probably was. But nobody could really, hardly anybody survived, and especially not the people that were close to him. None of them survived. So it's not like you could, after the fact, go and talk to people and be like, why would he do this? They're fucking dead.
Right.
There's nobody you can interview on it really. And the people that did survive, aside from his children and their kids, they didn't really seem to understand it either. They weren't close to him enough for him to share all his secrets. I don't think when he started this congregation that he planned this in the beginning. I think that this wasn't something he had planned until 1977 when he moved everybody to Jonestown. And I don't even think initially when he moved everybody, that was the plan. I just think it was an idea that he had some time being there. Because he was convinced that they were going to get locked up anyway. I don't know if he did it out of love. Maybe he genuinely believed that they were going to lock them all up. you know?
I I think he was I think they were witnesses, and that's what it was.
But he killed himself.
But someone shot him. Who knows what those circumstances were, and where obviously he probably commanded somebody to do it, but why didn't he just if he was really gonna die like everyone else, why not just drink the Kool-Aid? Why get shot?
Maybe he doesn't like Kool-Aid.
Well, you know what I mean. Then why pick that for why kill 900 people one way and then you're gonna get a bullet? I mean, I
I don't
guess the
know, it's
bullet's
quicker.
probably less painful. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot better than shitting and puking yourself to death because that's what happens when you take cyanide.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what happens. It is a less painful death. So I mean, it's hard to know if he actually believed the delusions. I think he did. Personally, I think that, like I said, I don't think that he planned this from the get go. I don't think he was teenage Jimmy and was like, I'm going to grow up and create a cult and kill everybody. I think that the reason why he did it was because, first of all, he clung to religion. And second of all, I think that he wanted to belong and he had finally built an empire where he belonged. And then he started taking a bunch of drugs and letting the ego carry him away.
Yeah.
And I think that the paranoid delusions did run away with them. And I think he did believe that. Again, a lot of the parents that killed their kids didn't want to kill their kids. They wanted the kids to live. He said no, they can't live. And like a 8-month-old baby is not a threat to him. That's not a witness.
Right.
There's no
Well,
reason to kill him.
yeah, at some point it defies all rational explanation, right? At some point this is just a crazy motherfucker doing crazy motherfucker shit. You know what I mean?
Which was probably the point around 1961 when he said the world was going to end in 67. So that's
Right.
probably
I'm telling you, never give a date. QAnon, everybody, you guys need to fucking learn to quit giving dates.
You
You
know,
know,
I think that's when that started. Yeah, it was, that's when he was really crazy. But, other people in his life, just kind of throughout the years, he made a lot of friends in a lot of high places. And some of the stuff that they had said about him was that, he was an atheist. He was he
wow.
was he was a devout atheist. He did not believe in and he said that. He told people that. The Bible is fake and the Bible is just you. I mean, he talked about King James and how King James rewrote the Bible in order to control people. And, I mean, who would know better than a cult leader? A fucking pot meets the kettle. And he preached that. He said that the Bible's fake. God and heaven and hell aren't what you think it is. It's this instead of that. And a lot of people clung to those ideas. They love those ideas. Again, let me reiterate. A lot of the shit that Jim Jones preached in his early days was actually pretty fucking solid.
Mm.
And, as weird as that is to admit, it's true. But he was a devout atheist. He thought that, and he also thought that he could then use religion to control people. But his point of using religion to control people was driven by the need to be a communist, which is weird.
Well, because he experienced income disparity, like as a youth growing up. So he
Yeah.
wanted. I didn't think of him more as a communist. I thought of him more as a socialist. But like, yeah, basically, anti-capitalism. It's because he grew up poor.
Yeah.
So he wants to redistribute the wealth. He wants to fucking create a level playing field for everybody, and that's going to create, that can sometimes be seen as communism. And we were at war with the communists, not necessarily because of their ideology, because of just everyone thinks that like, oh, it was this great battle between capitalism and communism, and it was to a certain extent, but it was also mostly just about the United States versus the Russians. It was about land masses and people and two armies and two forces. You know what I mean? Just like you would have, I don't know, the Phoenicians versus the Assyrians or something back in the day. Just like you would have any two landmass armies at each other's throats. That's all it was. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't about capitalism versus communism. It was about, side A versus side B. And when you started preaching about the socialist utopia, you get seen as a communism, and the government gets afraid that you're working with that other government, that you're working with the Russians. It's not that like capitalism inherently fears the power of communism and they're trying to keep it, they're trying to suppress this ideology. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the geopolitics. It has to do with the fucking Russians, invading the US and finding sympathizers here stateside that could potentially feed them information or sabotage public works and stuff. Um, so I get why he wanted socialism or communism or however you want to fucking label it, because he grew up poor in rural America, right? He had a bone to pick with the establishment. That's why he was able to mobilize all these, the the different groups and the different races and stuff. That's why he was able to build his army. You don't get to have 1,000 followers with all that money and all that land by being a complete lunatic. You got to have your shit together on some level. I mean, the two of us could barely keep a podcast going every fucking week. This guy bought land in South America and built his own city. Think about how type A you have to be to get that shit happening, right? We can't even get our asses to cryptid bash in a regular fucking fashion, right? So like he obviously, you talk about him being crazy, and look at the way it ended. I mean, he went off the rails at some point, but on another level, he really had his shit together, and he really knew how to fucking get people working together towards a common goal, and he really knew how to fucking stretch a buck and make and do all this stuff.
Well, not really. So, when they died, all of the assets were supposed to go to Russia.
Right, which
So
wasn't
okay,
gonna
so
happen, and he had couriers, like, delivering cash and shit too. Those
yeah,
people all got arrested, which I thought was kinda
they did.
bullshit, but whatever,
They did.
you know?
Well, I mean, okay, so in a spine, let me just say this because there's going to be people. Socialism and communism are not the same thing. And in his later years, he was very actively a communist.
Mhm.
And so, and their goal was to team up with Russia and hopefully go live there. Maybe not live there, but like I don't know, have some type of allyship with Russia. Which is why they talked a lot about Russia helping them and stepping in because they'd killed this U.S. congressman. They loved Russia. They thought that was great. So he was very much about that life. And again, all the money was supposed to go to Russia when they died. The assets equaled $42 million in today's money.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was like 10 million and something back then. Now with inflation, it's like over 42 million.
Mhm.
Because all these people were giving everything to him. I mean, again, he was a very popular guy. People liked him a lot. He knew how to talk to people, that's for sure. So what was really funny was that again, like I said, there was all this talk about Russia. I mean, that was always the plan, was that people were miserable in Jonestown and they wanted to leave because of the harsh working conditions and they barely had any food and they were struggling there, but Jim Jones kept kind of promising that Russia was going to step in and help take care of them. And what was hilarious was that at the end of the day, after all this happened, Russia like denounced all them and was like, fuck them, fuck the Jonestown people. They did publicly.
Right.
Like,
Well,
fuck them.
they're playing chess with America. They're not going to
Right.
get distracted by this goofball with his $10 million. But what's interesting is that the exact system that he was rallying against, the kind that keeps money from the people and doesn't distribute wealth evenly, he was hoarding wealth himself.
Right.
That's why people are inherently flawed. That's the problem with stuff like socialism and communism, where you talk about these utopian societies where everything's kind of shared equally amongst the people. Amongst people, you forget that people are inherently flawed and people are greedy and they're gonna fucking hoard food rations and shit like that. It's just kind of the way people are wired. And
Right.
the thing that what he was complaining about happening with the upper class, not being not sharing with the middle and lower class and all this stuff, he did himself. He did that. You're $10 million and you got people starving. You have 1,000 people under your charge.
Yeah.
You got $10 million in the bank, and
People
anybody is
starving.
hungry.
Yeah.
How the fuck is that possible? Because you're
Well,
not taking because you're hoarding wealth and you're not taking care of people and you're treating people like a labor force.
right. And it was on purpose. I mean, he was
Right.
wearing the people down to make them vulnerable, still to keep them vulnerable. 68% of those 909 people were black.
Yeah. I mean, That's a
I mean,
powerful magic to get black people following a white man in the woods and have him work the fucking land like that. That
he
shit
was
don't.
saying in the death tape, he was like pointing out, he was like, well, who? He's like, how many people left? He's like asking, and he was like, yeah, and how many of them were white? Oh yeah, they were all white people. You see, and he was like to the very end, like fucking shitting on white people, which I mean, good for him, but like also, he killed a lot of people. So, um, the Jonestown massacre was the largest uh, loss of casualties in America
Yeah,
until 9/11.
correct. Yeah,
Um, no, I don't think there's been one person who has single-handedly killed that many people.
never thought of it like that. That's a pretty impressive body count.
It is insane how many people died that day.
Mm.
Even like the Heaven's Gate people, like we did, we talked about them. There was like what,
Two.
25 or some shit.
Yeah, I still wear that shirt. What if they were right? And I was wearing it last weekend, and I got stopped and had a conversation with somebody about it. They thought it was absolutely hysterical. I'm like, you
Yeah.
never know. Maybe they were.
And they were a little bit different. I mean, but if you look at like the similarities between those
Theirs
two,
was gender and sexuality, and this seemed to be race orientated. Yeah, but
right,
you got to find something to galvanize the people. You know,
you're preying on a particular trait of that individual and using it,
right? Something that's being either like ignored or just marginalized by mainstream society, and that's
Mhm.
why hey, people want to complain about how like why do we see so much queer representation in media when such a small percentage of the population is actually queer themselves? Because it's important and it stops people from joining fucking cults. You know what I mean? Why is it important that we see black faces on TV and on movies? Why do we need to have a black Superman movie? Because this shit's important and it stops people from doing
Right.
Jonestown shit.
Those people matter too. I mean, they're people.
Everybody. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I agree with that part. The weird thing about it is that like Jim Jones didn't discriminate against gay people, but he did discriminate against people having sex, but not because like he hated sex or whatever. It's because like that was time that you could be using putting time into the church. So
Yeah, that's where these guys all get it wrong. If Pat started his cult, it would be a lot different.
you guys aren't fucking enough, right? I
Pat's
mean,
cult will be just a bunch of. It won't be like that. Trust me. When my cult finally goes live, you guys don't have to worry about that.
Jesus.
I promise you that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's you got. If you're gonna have a cult, why not have fun with it? I'm just saying. Um, Cults are interesting. They all have this main theme. So far this is technically the third episode on cults. I did one with Ivy. I think it was the third episode ever of the podcast, and it was just in general about cults. And we actually kind of started applying cults to pop culture and how fandoms could technically be considered cults and things like that, but we didn't really,
Oh
we just
yeah.
kind of generalized about them. We didn't actually deep dive so much into too many. I think we did one cult. I can't remember the name of the cult. Oh my gosh, and it was a cult, don't get me wrong, but they weren't bad people. They weren't bad people. They weren't fucking drinking the Kool-Aid and stuff. They were actually good fucking people that actually wanted to do good fucking things with the world, and everybody shit all over them because they were a cult. So, and I can't remember his name. Netflix did a whole thing about it. Anyway, and we did too. But cults aren't always necessarily a bad thing, and cults can kind of hide in different areas that you don't really understand or see. Tribalism is very real. Um, so there's a gray area between some of these things, but you got to be careful and you got to continue to think for yourself. Listen, if it doesn't sound right, then you should probably get the fuck out then. Don't wait. Don't be like, hey, that one thing didn't sound right that one time. No, you should leave. Otherwise, you might end up in the jungle drinking Flavor Aid. Notice how Flavor Aid like went under after all that,
Oh, it's still around. Anyone that tells you who you can and can't fuck is inherently evil, be they
Oh yeah,
spouse, parents, whatever.
anybody, right? Spouse. Spouse says they start telling you can't fuck people. It's like,
Right?
you
Fucking
gotta
red
go.
flag right there. Hey now. What's this about? What do you mean? I mean, I can only fuck you. What the fuck is that? So what are you, Jim Jones? Is this Control?
This
All right, well then
Jonestown.
I'm putting the padlock on the fridge.
Oh my god. Well, Pat, if that's how you handle your relationship, um, I agree though. I think
I
that is a good standard. If somebody starts controlling your sex life, yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, if they just start telling you you can't fuck. So that my final thought, because I know you're about to ask me for it.
Yeah.
I want to preach a movie that I saw immediately upon release that is actually about the Jonestown Massacre. 2013's The Sacrament. Have you seen this?
I'm not.
It's a found footage movie directed by Ty West, who everyone loves again now because he just did X, that movie that came out. But he's had some good movies over the years. Um, he had I don't know, The House of the Devil, The Innkeepers, um, and then yeah, X just came out. And actually, the trailer, if you're listening to this on the day that this podcast drops on Wednesday, the trailer for his new movie is being released too. It's a prequel to X. But in 2013, came out with a movie called The Sacrament. It's a found footage thing about two Vice reporters. One of them played by Joe Swanberg, my old buddy from Columbia College Film School, that go to a some location to get one of their family members out of this cult, and you see the Jonestown Massacre unfold through found footage. And it's funny because the one of the Vice photographers, videographers that survives hides underneath the bed, and as a nod to the chick that actually survived the whole thing by falling asleep underneath the bed. So it's worth checking out. The Sacrament, 2013. I'm sure it's pretty easy to find. Produced by Eli Roth, written and directed by Ty West, starring
Wow, I'm
Joe
surprised I never heard
Farmer.
of this.
Yeah, well, you were probably fucking 9 when it came out or something. Like, I don't know, you're little. But,
I had just separated from my husband in 2013. Thank you.
okay, so you were 12.
I was a full adult, making real life adult decisions. I had a 3-year-old, um, at the time. But no, that's okay. I'm definitely going to check that out. And yeah, I was going to try to do some editing magic. I don't really edit these episodes a lot, but I was going to add some of the death tape stuff. But like I said, after listening to it, it's just so fucking sad. And I
Yeah,
love gory shit. I love that shit.
yeah,
But it's hard, and it's hard enough, and I didn't want to do that to everybody, so I'm not going to do that. If you want to hear it all, you can. Again, it's not you don't hear the people dying. That's good, but just to put the disclosure in there, you don't hear anybody die, but you do hear everything leading up to it and all the protests and things like that, and you kind of hear the reasoning, how they're kind of trying to talk through it and stuff. So it's interesting if you have a strong enough stomach, and like I said, if you want to ruin your whole entire fucking day. So
that's one way to
check
do
that out. Check out that mixtape, the Jonestown.
it.
Oh, that's terrible. But yeah, what a sad story, but I'm really glad we covered it. Again, this was the first time I'd ever deep dive into this, and really understood, kind of all of it. Check out everything out there. There is so much out there about it. You could just fucking spend an entire weekend binging Jonestown shit.
Or Jim
Because
Jones before he even got to Jonestown. I mean, that
yeah,
guy, there's a story there before you even get to the Kool-Aid part.
there
So,
is. And like I said, we downplayed it a lot. I mean, and that's just because, like I said, for the sake of kind of keeping it on track and not making it confusing. He did a lot. I think we kind of talked about how I think we talked about the last episode, how there are people that can do really amazing things, but then do also really unfortunate things. And Jim Jones is that character. At one point in time, I mean, somebody likened him to Martin Luther King Jr.
wow.
I
That,
mean,
that,
because
that tweet didn't age well.
no, it didn't. And it did not, but he was. I mean, all this money and things he was collecting, he would have, he would give it back into the community for a very long time. And who knows what the fuck happened? Who knows? And now, of course, was he doing it all to stroke his own ego? Yeah, probably. He probably found out he got attention that way, and it was probably selfish from the get go. I can almost guarantee you that. But he did do a lot of good for those communities. And then he killed 918 people.
Had a
So
lot of good ideas, just kind of went about it the wrong way.
the execution wasn't very good.
Mm.
See what I did there? The execution.
Sure,
Yeah, I
baby.
get it. All right. Well, on that note, Pato didn't like my joke, so I'm gonna go cry about it. We'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.